Okay, so we're going to do an example of a balance sheet, and this is from section 3.3, 29 and 30. And here's a very typical problem. $1,000 deposited monthly into an account, so every month you put $1,000 in, and the account earns 4%. So that's the annual rate, but it's compounded monthly, so you have to divide 0.04 divided by 12 to get the per period amount. Create a balance sheet for this account. How much interest is earned over the first 6 months and over the last 6 months. So this is done for a year. I suppose I should have said that in there. So for a year, $1,000 is deposited monthly. So what is a balance sheet, and what does this look like? Well, a balance sheet, you start with a period, and the old balance, balance. And what kind of money goes into the account? Well, there's the payment that you make every month, and there's the interest that you earn every month, interest, and that's an N. And then there's your new balance. Right, and so these are each columns on your balance sheet, and those are the headings. There's a very similar thing in the book. So, first period, well, there's nothing in your account, so your old balance is 0. You put in a payment of 1,000. Since there's nothing in the account, you don't get any interest on it. And so at the end of the first period, you started with no money, you got no interest on that no money, and you put in $1,000. So you've got $1,000. What about the second period? Well, your new balance carries over, becomes your old balance. So you start the second month with $1,000 in your account. You make another $1,000 payment, and now you get interest. How much interest do you get? Well, interest rate is 0.04, but it's compounded monthly, so remember this is I. And how much do you have in your account when you start the new month? Well, the balance that carries over is 1,000. So I times the old balance, that gives you the interest. And if you take 0.04 times 1,000 divided by 12, you get $3.33. So you make $3.33 on interest on the money in the account. So what's your new balance? Well, you started with $1,000, you put in another $2,000, and you got $3.33 in interest. So your new balance is $2,000 and $2,003.33, right? This 1,000, this 1,000, and then the interest. So you can see how this is going to go. I'll make these lines a little longer. So 3, carry down the new balance, 2,003.33. What's your payment this month? Another $1,000. What's your interest? Well, same deal. The interest here is 0.04 over 12, because that's I, the interest rate per period, times whatever the old balance was. So that's the 2,003.33. So you make interest on what you had at the end of the previous period. And so your interest now is $6.68. I've rounded everything to 2 because, we don't have half cents and stuff, but depending on how you round things, you might get slightly different numbers. So $6.68, what's your new balance? What's the old balance plus the payment that you make this month plus the interest you get off of the old balance? So now you're sitting at $3,010.01. Okay, so next period, what happens? You carry over the old balance, $3,010.01. You pay in your $1,000. You calculate how much interest you got on the old balance. So 0.04 over 12 times 3,010.13, and that turns out to be $10.03. What's your new balance? Old balance plus the payment from this month plus the interest on the old balance gives you a total of $4,020.04. And you just repeat, right? This becomes the old balance, payment of 1,000, interest on the old balance, new balance for period 5, etc., etc. So generally that's pretty easy. It's also a little tedious. There are certain programs that certainly make that a lot easier. And so if we look at Microsoft Excel. This is a spreadsheet program that should be able to do the same thing. So we'll do exactly the same problem, right? $1,000 are paid a month, and your interest rate is 4% compounded monthly. So if we just start the same thing, our old balance was 0. What's our payment? Well, we put in $1,000 a month. What's our interest? One thing about Microsoft Excel, well, we'll just say it's 0 for now, and we'll get to what Excel does in a second. And the new balance, well, that's 0 plus 1,000 plus 0. So that's my $1,000. Oops, they don't like commas much. Okay, so what's my old balance? So in dealing with Microsoft Excel, if you've never dealt with it before, anytime you want the program to do a calculation, you have to use an equal sign. So I want my old balance in period 2 to equal the new balance from period 1. And so if you had a mouse, you'd just click on the new balance. So $1,000. What's my payment? Oops. That's a little bit too much, right? It's supposed to be 1,000, not 10,000. Okay. So what's my payment? Well, my payment every month is 1,000. What's my interest now? Well, my interest is the interest rate of 0.04 divided by 12, because that's I, times the new balance. So what is interest, that's the header, is equal to, so you put in your equal sign, open parentheses, 0.04 divided by 12. So that's my interest rate of 0.04 divided by the 12 times it's compounded per month, times the balance at the end of the previous period. So $3.33. And what now is my new balance? Well, my new balance is equal to the old balance plus the payment plus the interest. Zingo. Great. And so that's our 2003.33. Now, one nice thing about Microsoft Excel is you can just click on one row that contains a bunch of calculations and an empty row below it, and if you hit Control D, it says do all those calculations, but do it for the next row. So what do we have here? Oops, there we go. So Microsoft Excel carries over the new balance to the old balance, carries over the payment, which is just 1,000. 6.68, that's supposed to be my interest. 0.04 divided by 12 times the old balance. Right? And if you click there, you can see that it's this number, that's I, 0.04 divided by 12 times E3. And then what's the new balance? Well, the new balance is old balance, B4, plus C4, that's the payment, plus interest. And that gives me E. And the other awesome thing about Microsoft Excel is if you choose this whole swipe, like that, and so that's shift, hold down the shift button and select a cell, and that'll select all these cells. Well, I can just have Microsoft Excel do all the calculations for me. So that's very nice. So what's in the account at the end of the road? That much, 12,222.46. What's the total interest paid in? So the amount, that equals this amount. Paid in. Well, how much did I pay in? Well, I made 12 payments of 1,000. So I paid in $12,000. And so what's the total interest? Well, interest is the amount minus what's paid in. So total interest equals amount minus what I paid in. So the interest is $222.46. Awesome. So what's the interest over the first 6 months? So periods 1 through 6. Well, that is equal to the sum of those numbers, right? You just add them up. And the command in Microsoft Excel is sum, add things up from D2 to D7. So $50.22. What's the interest over months 7 through 12. Well, you do the same thing, equals the sum from 7 to 12 over the back half of the payments, $172.24. There's a lot more money in the account in the second half of the year, so you get a lot more interest. And of course, the total interest, that better be equal to the money over the first half of the year plus the money over the second half of the year. 222.46. So 222.46, 222.46. You can actually check and make sure that you get this same number if you use the future value equation. So if you have just a couple of calculations to do, right, you can do a balance sheet by hand, right? New balance becomes the old balance plus payment plus interest on the old balance gives you your total. If you know how to use Microsoft Excel, that makes these kinds of calculations much easier. And so problems 29 and 30, I think it was, from the book are very much like that. And then there was a question on one of the worksheets. 29 and 30 from section 3.3. And there was a question on the worksheet for Wednesday, October 2nd that